Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a trip way back in time to follow the glowing light of a truly incredible historical figure, young Prophet Ibrahim, peace be upon him. We're going to trace his mind-opening quest for the truth in the ancient land of Babylonia. Honestly, it's a completely fascinating story about using your brain, questioning the world around you, and having the courage to stand up for what actually makes sense.
But first, I want you to think about something. Have you ever noticed a situation that just didn't make any sense, even when everyone else around you acted like it was completely normal? I want you to imagine being the very last person in your entire town to realize that a wildly popular game everyone plays, or a rule everyone follows, is just completely silly. It takes a massive amount of bravery to be the one to point that out, doesn't it? Well, that is exactly the situation young Ibrahim found himself in.
Section 1, A Boy in Ancient Babylonia. So let's set the scene. Ancient Babylonia was located right in what we know today as present-day Iraq. And in this incredibly busy ancient land, a very special boy named Ibrahim was born. He wasn't just any kid, you see. He was destined to carry forth the powerful message of the prophets of the past. But the world he was born into, it was a confusing one, totally disconnected from that original message.
Young Ibrahim was really up against it. His people were totally trapped in this cycle of ignorance, worshiping lifeless stones and wood. Everyone around him, including his very own family, was just following the ways of their ancestors without giving it a second thought. They'd create these statues, put them up on pedestals, and believe with all their hearts that these basic blocks of stone and wood had actual magical powers to help them in their everyday lives.
Section 2. The Statue Maker's Shop. Now this is where the story gets super personal for our young truth seeker. You see, Ibrahim's father wasn't just casually worshiping these statues. He literally made a living off of them. He was the guy crafting these idols of all different shapes and sizes right there in his shop. And like any father, he had really high hopes that his son would eventually grow up, become a priest, and revere these idols just like he did.
Ibrahim would watch this whole process unfold, and it perfectly highlights how ridiculous the situation was to him. Think about it. Step 1, his father carves a statue out of a piece of wood with his own 2 hands. Step 2, he sells that exact statue to a customer. And step 3, that customer immediately bows down to it. Ibrahim would visit the temples and see the wood being carved, the money changing hands, and then, mere seconds later, he'd watch people prostrating to that very same piece of wood, begging it for favors and protection. To a bright kid like Ibrahim, it was just completely illogical.
Section 3. Asking the big questions. At first, this whole thing might have seemed like kind of a weird joke to young Ibrahim. But the more he thought about the logic, or rather the lack of logic, the joke completely faded. It started to genuinely frustrate and anger him. He couldn't just laugh it off or ignore it anymore. He had to ask the big, tough questions that everyone else was just way too scared or stubborn to ask.
And this led to one massive question. Could a carved piece of stone or wood actually help someone in need? I want you guys to put on your detective hats for a second and really think alongside Ibrahim. How could a handmade object, something that literally used to be a tree branch or a rock sitting in the dirt a few days ago, possibly provide guidance, answer prayers, or offer any sort of protection? How can something you build yourself suddenly be more powerful than you? The math just wasn't adding up.
So Ibrahim started gathering his evidence, and the truth about these statues was glaringly obvious. They cannot speak, they cannot hear, they cannot eat, and they cannot drink. Ibrahim saw these idols for exactly what they were, completely idle. They lacked even the most basic, fundamental abilities that you and I take for granted every single day.
When you actually compare a living, breathing human being to one of these carved idols, the difference is night and day. On one hand, you have humans who can eat, drink, walk around, invent things, and talk to one another. And on the other hand, you have these statues they worshipped, which possessed absolute lifelessness and zero power. Ibrahim knew deep down in his core that these statues couldn't do a single thing for anyone. Section 4. A Brave Talk with Father. As Ibrahim grew up, his belief in the truth just got stronger and stronger. He definitely wasn't the type to just stay quiet to keep the peace. Because he understood the reality so deeply, it gave him this incredible courage to respectfully, but very firmly, question his father's logic. He was ready to call his father to the truth and challenge these misguided beliefs head-on, starting right in his own living room. There's this incredibly powerful quote from Surah Al-An'am, Ayah 74, where he just lays it out. He boldly asked his father, "Do you take idols as deities?"
Indeed, I see you and your people to be in manifest error. Basically, he was telling them they were making a massive, undeniable mistake. He didn't sugarcoat things. He used his God-given common sense to point out the giant flaw in worshiping things they made with their own hands.
Section 5. The One True Creator. Now, speaking up like this, it definitely wasn't easy. Ibrahim's logical points were met with hostility, rejection, and huge resistance from people who absolutely refused to abandon the ways of their ancestors. But despite all that pushback, Ibrahim never wavered, not even once. Why? Because he knew the absolute truth.
He knew that the only answer was the Creator, the one true deity of the heavens and the earth who alone is worthy of worship. Ibrahim firmly believed in Allah, the one true God. And this wasn't just a passing phase for him, it was a profound, life-altering truth that guided every single action and decision for the rest of his life. He totally understood that there's no deity worthy of worship except the Creator who actually made everything in existence.
So here's a question I really want you to think about as we wrap up. If you were young Ibrahim, would you have the courage to stand up for common sense and the truth? Because let's be real, it is not always easy to go against the crowd, especially when that crowd is your own friends and family. But I hope you leave this explainer today feeling inspired. Ask yourselves if you'd be brave enough to use your mind, look at the evidence, and stand up for what's right, just like the glowing light of Prophet Ibrahim. Keep asking questions, keep learning, and I will see you in the next explainer.